Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. It's Murdercat here, and this week I'm going to do a talk video. It's been a little bit of a while since we've done like a sit down furry related talk video, so I thought I would do one. One that I thought that really affects the furry fandom, and luckily I've kind of not seen a lot of it lately, but it has been something that's been kind of moved around with like normie culture and stuff like that, like cringe culture. What is it? How does it affect the furry fandom? Why is it that it seems to have such a grasp on the furry fandom, making it to the point to where you can't really talk about it in real life? Just stuff like that, like things I've kind of touched on but I've never really delved into. So first and foremost, the furry fandom has spent a long period of its time in the like, it's a really easy target, I guess is the best way to say it. Reason being, a lot of people are generally trying to figure out themselves when they're joining the fandom, or they're younger when they end up joining the fandom, and it's kind of a fandom that's based on having like a sense of self. So when that sense of self is attacked, that's when you get the reactions. That's what the whole idea is behind cringe culture, is like the reaction videos and stuff like that. So thanks to things like the CSI episode, like that's always referenced, and then like some things like that, like the first good like media that we got was Shane Dawson's video where he like actually, he was like he started off like, oh wow, this is really cringy, then he like actually talked to a furry, got an idea of what it was about, and ever since then I feel like a lot of news people have done a lot more like shedding the light on things, making things a little bit more positive. That was a really big movement that I was really happy that Hero could do for us, as well as Shane doing it. And I kind of wish he would continue that series, because it's like there's a lot of like cringy things out there, and like actually sitting down and talking to a person and figuring out like why they do it, a lot of the times it's escapism. So that's why like I always reference it so much. Like the furry fandom is so harshly based on escapism for a lot of people. So when that sense of self that they're using to escape the real world is attacked, that's when you get the whole feeding the trolls and stuff like that. But anyway, so I've kind of already summarized it. Cringe culture is basically based on like, just think of your high school bully. Like there's a bunch of people that they want a cheap laugh. It takes zero effort to create compilations. Like I know there'll be like furry cringe compilations of like vines that we've done or whatever, and like yeah, we do a lot of like some weird things that I can see being cringy to someone who doesn't understand the fandom, like someone running up going like meow and stuff like that, just a normal human being like in like public. Like I can see why that could be cringy for some people. So that's where like we have a lot of mannerisms where we're like super comfortable with one another, like the whole like hugging and like scritching and like all that fun stuff. Like we're super comfortable with ourselves, and that's the whole idea behind the fandom, is to like get comfortable with yourself, find yourself kind of thing. Whereas other fandoms, it's like I feel like they're more like on pairings, what their favorite character is and stuff like that. Like I always say the furry fandom is kind of like celebrating each other. So when that person gets targeted, it kind of starts a like landslide of just terribleness, because furries are notorious for falling for the bait. So there's two main forms. Like I said, there's the compilations, and then there's like good old Leafy is here kind of content where they just like target a certain person. Hey, look at this weird person, let's all laugh at them. And it kind of creates this like, not really like a witch hunt, it's just like, oh wow, this person's really weird. Like I feel like he's the best example for what it like really meant to be to like follow for like cringe culture. Like wow, this is so cringy and stuff like that. And it's like the whole idea behind it, like I can understand why like sitting there watching a cringe compilation would make you feel better about yourself. And I think that's probably why they choose to do it, is because they have self-esteem issues of their own that they need to solve. Because that's what you were always told in high school about bullies. Like the bullies were just being bullies because they don't know themselves, and so they target those who feel comfortable about themselves. And what's the furry fandom about? Trying to get comfortable with yourself. So we're often a target for cringe culture. So there's, like I said, there's the first ones, like the compilation where you literally just, it's so brainless, so pointless, so stupid, where you just go through, skim through, find some vines that have maybe some cringy content. You rip a bunch of content from the original creators, which I guess is kind of good they aren't getting credited, because then it would just send swarms of people after them. But you just take a bunch of content that's not your own, put out there, and you're just like, haha, look at how weird and stupid and dumb and weird and creepy like these people are. And then like the comment section is like, oh, that's so cringy, and it's like, wow, yay, that was so fun. Like, I bet that was a great 30 minutes of your time. Like, I don't know. I guess maybe if I just don't get it, honestly. And then the second form would be the form that I would, I guess, understand a little bit more, because at least there's some interaction. It's normally like the react videos, or people like sharing their opinion, like I said, like how Leafy would do his videos on like a certain person, like explaining like why they're cringy and stuff like that. That takes at least a little bit more effort, rather than just putting up a bunch of like, look at these cringy Musical.ly kids doing what they want to do. Like, I know that's not the furry fandom, but a lot of furries did use Musical.ly and Vine, and those were mostly targeted for ripping the content and making the compilations. So, like I said, both forms are very low ball forms of comedy, and I feel like with the internet and social media, with the way that it is grown, I feel like humor has changed. Like, for instance, like the free, like one of my favorite memes, like the "it's free real estate," like you just see that face and you know exactly the meme. Or like the Mr. Obama, you know, that whole meme, like hello, like just seeing like Obama's eyes red, your brain associates then perished. Or like the I know you know how to do it on them kind of meme, you know, like that, like where all you have to see is a picture and you understand the meme context behind it. And I feel like humor has really changed. There was one tweet that someone said that like, I feel like millennial humor changed when the Lonely Island, I can't remember the main guy's name, but like when those people did the what you say video, like it just feels like humor changed so much with the use of social media. So I feel like everyone has to find their kind of laugh, and I guess cringe culture is just one of those ways where someone, I guess that's what they find funny. Like, I mean, I'm not for it, because a lot of times it hurts people, and like I said, the way it affects the furry fandom, since it's a fandom based on being confident about yourself, finding yourself, making the you want to be, or being the you want to be, cringe culture really affects the furry fandom, because normally the targets are the younger furries or the newer furries, and it has this like shutdown effect where it's like you don't want to be a social outcast, you don't want to be in the light of these people making fun of you, so you either just completely ditch it, or you feel bad about it, or you feel ostracized, like in high school, like you're like, oh, you're the weird kid at school and stuff like that. So like for new fursuit makers, I know there's a lot of like cringy fursuit accounts out there, like on Tumblr when that was real big, like when Tumblr used to make like cringy this or that accounts, or like cringy art accounts. And it's like a new artist or a beginning artist, or even someone that's like in their 30s just picking up art, seeing their art on a blog like that, the natural response for most people is just, I never want to do it again. And for those who are strong enough to be like, I am going to do it, they either A, make a big point of it, which they cause a giant like fire, because then they're feeding the trolls, and the even smaller fraction actually don't say anything and just use this as fuel for themselves to actually grow. So it kind of sucks, because it's like 75% of the reaction is normally visible, which is, like I said, don't feed the trolls. Like 4chan used to target furries a lot, and furries were notorious for responding. and that's why they were always like targeted so heavily, especially like they would do like raids on Furfinity where they would like post a bunch of images and they would be like, oh, look at them ball and stuff like that, like all that old kind of stuff. Like cringe culture has kind of died out a little bit because people, I guess, have just kind of gotten bored with it, because how many times can you like call someone cringy and just be like, oh, that's so like I don't even understand, like a try not to cringe challenge would be about the most that I would find this sort of culture entertaining, and even then like it's at the expense of someone that you don't know. It's kind of like when you watch like the what was it was like funniest home videos, and like 90% of it were like people hurting themselves, like doing something stupid and like getting hurt. Like I just like sometimes I laugh, but then it's like, why did I laugh? Like that was at the expense of someone like hitting their head or something, you know what I mean? Like it's like I feel like you laugh because it's awkward, and you're just like taking the fact that you laughed as like, oh, it was funny. And it's like, no, sometimes when you laugh, it's just an awkward response of your body not expecting something. And if you're just watching someone ride a quad and then they hurt themselves and you laugh, and it's like, should I really have laughed at that? No one deserves to get hurt. I mean, like, if they're doing something really stupid and they get hurt, then, like, yeah, I can understand that. But, like, that's not really cringy. That's just laughing at someone doing something stupid. You know what I mean? So it's like, where even is the line where, like, cringing comes in? I really don't understand this type of humor. At least, like, with memes, like, with the text over memes, like, I know, like, those kind of bother people because it's, like, it's very low-ball amount of effort. But at least with those, it's normally not like attacking people. Like the whole like Ermagerd meme, like that was like based on making fun of a girl, you know what I mean? Like stuff like that, where it's like that kind of fits like in that niche of like cringe culture where it's like, oh haha, she can't say oh my god, like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's just like, I don't personally find that funny, I guess because I'm mindful that it hurts people, and maybe some people that laugh at these videos don't realize that it really can't have an effect, or they're taking advantage of the fact that it's like anonymous. Your face isn't out there. And I think that's why a lot of people do it, especially the ones who don't even like do talkovers or reactions or anything. They just literally make the compilations. They're just in screen name. No one knows who's doing it, you know what I mean? And then like when they get a bunch of views, they're like, oh yeah, look at me, like I made fun of these people and I got attention, like, and no one knows who I am. Whereas like I highly doubt that person in real life, if they actually were face to face with the person that they were making fun of on their YouTube or their Twitter or whatever account they're using to post their content, I really feel like they wouldn't like say it to their face. So they kind of take advantage of the fact that it's all behind a screen, and usually when you have the screen in front of you, it's hard to realize there is someone behind that screen. So was it really worth laughing about? But it's not like I'm like preaching to you guys like, hey, don't involve yourselves in cringe culture, because I'm pretty sure a lot of you don't, because you've either been a target or you've seen it secondhand, because it's so common in the furry fandom. Like I literally can pull up YouTube and do like furry vines, and like the second option would be like cringy furry vine, you know what I mean? Like it's so, there's so much of it out there that it's like, it's hard for you to not realize that it has some sort of effect on the community. And I guess maybe just like my biggest message to take away from this is don't feed the trolls. Always and forever. Just block and move on. And if you are a part of any of those compilations, then just be like, okay, these people are just jerks and they probably wouldn't say it to my face, and just use it as fuel. Like for instance, like if they're making fun of your art for not being good, well then just get better. Like just keep practicing, and then one day like maybe you'll be really good, and now look at them, they look stupid. It's the same kind of thing, like I said, when you're going in high school. Like just ignore them. The more you pay attention to them, the more you let them breed and just continue the process. And I feel like since a lot of people have just kind of been ignoring this sort of culture, it has been dying out, thankfully, but it still is out there. It still does affect people, especially our younger members of the fandom. So that's where I'm kind of like, just please, for the love of God, like white knighting does not help. It does not help at all. It just brings more attention to it, brings more people into it. And like in the news, the whole NASA thing, that like is a huge example of like furries lost her job, not the guy. You know what I mean? Like the whole NASA thing, I'm sure you probably know about it, but it's like that's where like a huge example where like so many people felt like they needed to get involved and jump in, and they ended up losing her internship for her. And whereas if they just would have let it die and just not reacted the way they did, it's just furries are so quick to just lunge on things and just like blow it out of proportion, where it's like if you would just ignore these sorts of ordeals and just like let them slide, you would be so less stressed. There was so much less negative energy out there when the world is already so negative. We don't need more of it. Just block and move on. And instead of responding like, hey, you're a jerk, don't pick on this person, maybe privately message the person like, hey, I'm here for you. That to me feels a lot more nurturing and a lot more beneficial to the person, rather than bringing more attention and possibly bringing more trolls. Whereas you can just handle it politely and with just the one person, try to keep it de-escalated as possible. Like, I really hate when people bring like, avoid this person at all costs, and they make this whole big ordeal where it's like, just block them, tell your friends to block them, and other people will probably find out about them eventually. Unless they're a really terrible person, that's the only time I feel like call out culture is really necessary. But when it comes to like cringe culture and call out culture, like mixing the two, for the love of God, it's just someone that's probably 12 and doesn't know much better and just thinks it's funny because they see some other people doing it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just let it die and it'll die. Just build each other up privately, or even as a group. Like, just kind of ignore the message or the post or whatever like that, and just go to the person themselves and build them up, rather than giving any attention to the negative stuff. And that's just kind of what I wanted to say, because it's like, I feel like a lot of the younger furs in the community, like when we had that whole ordeal where the little girl was bullied at the convention, like that, for instance, like I feel like that blew up so much more than it needed to. Like, yeah, the guys, the people that did it were jerks, or the person or whoever, I don't even remember, because it was such a big ordeal that it's like, it made it seem like there was this huge thing where like, it's nice that it ended the way it did, because I was like, oh my god, like this got so big. Whereas like people could have just like went to her and be like, it's okay, it's fine, everything's cool, which a lot of people did. A lot of people ended up including her, and she ended up having a really good time at the convention. But it just goes to show, like, for instance, one of those things where it's like, it didn't need to be as big as it needed to be. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was such a stupid ordeal that it could have been handled with a much smaller group instead of the entire internet knowing about it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just stuff like that. So I just wanted to kind of get a little soapbox out on cringe culture. It really bothers me, especially seeing it in the furry community. And I'm just kind of hoping that if you take anything away from this video, is to just block and move on. And if you do see maybe your friends being affected, don't think that you have to white knight to be a friend. Like, you can just privately message them and everyone moves on, rather than building the fire up more than it needs to be. But thank you guys so much for this week's video. I hope that, like I said, you'll take something away from it, or maybe learn a little bit of something, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.